Thanks for tuning in to ARIRANG News. I'm Devin Whiting in Seoul. The foreign and defense ministers of South Korea and the U.S. will meet in Washington over the next 2 days. They're expected to discuss strengthening their joint deterrence measures against North Korea. Connie Kim has our top story.
South Korea's foreign and defense ministers have kicked off their official visit to Washington by paying tribute at the Korean War Veterans Memorial. During their visit to the U.S., Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se and Defense Minister Han Min-gu will seek response measures against North Korea's nuclear threats. A so-called 2+2 meeting will be held on Wednesday with the two South Korean ministers and their U.S. counterparts, Secretary of State John Kerry and Defense Secretary Ashton Carter. Topping the agenda are ways to bring out a strong UN Security Council resolution and formulate additional ways for Seoul and Washington to further pressure Pyongyang.
We'll focus on putting our heads together to ensure the sanctions on North Korea are the strongest they can be.
Minister Yoon and Secretary Kerry are set to hold a joint press conference following their talks. On the following day, the two defense chiefs are set to discuss Washington's extended deterrence over South Korea, under which the U.S. will mobilize all of its military assets to defend the country in a time of crisis. Having U.S. strategic assets deployed on the Korean peninsula at all times will reportedly be discussed during the defense talks. Carter hinted at such plans in the latest issue of Foreign Affairs on Tuesday. He said Washington is continuing to deploy some of its most advanced capabilities, including F-22 and F-35 stealth fighter jets and maritime patrol aircraft under the second phase of the Obama administration's rebalance to Asia. In response, North Korea ramped up its rhetoric, saying Seoul and the presidential office of Cheongwade will be burned to the ground if there are signs of preemptive strikes from South Korea and the U.S. Connie Kim, ARIRANG News.
In other news, the chief of South Korea's spy agency says he believes the allegations against a former leader of the main opposition Minju Party of Korea that under a previous administration he wanted to consult North Korea before a vote in the UN. Lee Byung-ho, the head of the National Intelligence Service, said Wednesday during a parliamentary audit that, based on his personal view, the account by former Foreign Minister Song Min-sun in his memoir seems to be fact, as it's specific and logical. According to Song's memoir, ex-opposition chief Moon Jae-in suggested to the late President Roh Moo-hyun that Seoul ask Pyongyang its opinion before a UN vote on North Korea's human rights record in 2007. The spy chief added, however, that it's not appropriate for the NIS to be involved in political wrangling over the issue. Korea's economic policy makers met today to discuss ways to find new growth engines for the country's economy. The meeting comes as the Note 7 crisis at Samsung and a strike at Hyundai are measurably hurting exports. Kim Hae-sung has this report.
Two of the main pillars of Korea's economy are in crisis: Samsung Electronics and Hyundai Motor, which together account for 20% of the nation's GDP. Samsung last week announced it's essentially killing off its Galaxy Note 7 smartphone due to persistent reports it's a fire risk. Losses related to the recall are expected to cost the company over $6 billion. As for Hyundai Motor, the company sold around 5.6 million cars in the first 9 months of this year, representing a 1.8% on-year drop. And the company remains mired in labor strife. According to Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy, Korea's exports in September dropped 6% compared to the same month last year, with automobile and smartphone exports alone falling by $1.5 billion. Because of the impact Samsung and Hyundai Motor could have on other sectors of the Korean economy, their crises were a main topic discussed at Wednesday's meeting of economy-related ministers.
We will support small and mid-sized companies hurt by the troubles at Samsung and Hyundai, diversify Korea's industry portfolio, and push for structural reforms.
As technology changes and the global economy slows down, Korean exports have been falling, meaning it could be more important than ever for the country to find new growth engines. Kim Hae-sung, ARIRANG News.
The 4-month-long investigation into Korea's fifth-largest conglomerate, Lotte Group, has come to a close. Seoul prosecutors indicted but did not detain the group's chairman, Shin Dong-bin, his elder brother, Dong-ju, and their father and the group's founder, Shin Gyuk-ho. Prosecutors said they found evidence of both embezzlement and tax evasion, and that all responsible members of the owner family will be tried in court. The total amount of cash involved in the cases is estimated at around $330 million. The founder's common-law wife, Seo Mi-kyung, and his daughter, Shin Young-ja, had previously been indicted on charges of tax evasion. Prosecutors have also indicted 14 sitting and former Lotte executives. The full-fledged probe was launched back in June, with prosecutors raiding some 10 business units and summoning about 500 of Lotte's executives and staff, either as suspects or witnesses. Lotte Group apologized for causing concern and vowed to cooperate with the legal proceedings. The UN Refugee Agency says some 900 civilians have fled the Iraqi city of Mosul and crossed into Syria ahead of the ongoing battle to retake Mosul from Islamic State militants. This would be the first group of civilians confirmed to have escaped the city since Kurdish and Iraqi government troops began operations there on Monday. A separate UN agency, the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, has said the battle for Mosul could become the world's largest and most complex of 2016. The UN expects about 200,000 people to flee their homes in the first weeks of the fighting, with space outside Mosul to accommodate only 60,000 of them. There are also concerns ISIS could use those who remain as human shields as Kurdish and Iraqi forces close in. And that's all for now. Thanks for watching. More to come on News Center in 2 hours' time. Bye for now.